Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Today it is June 1st, 2022. Can you believe it? We made it to June already. We have a couple Nationals games to talk about. The Nationals get swept, oh no, by the New York Mets. There's a whole lot of other news, though. Joe Ross, Tommy John surgery once again. We have a member of the Nationals on the IL that has caused a call-up we've been waiting for a long time. Alcides Escobar on the shelf, which means that we are getting the call-up of Luis Garcia. That and a whole lot more to get to on today's show.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, hello everybody, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Glad to see you all today. It is once again June 1st, 2022. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LO_Nationals. You all can follow me at Josh Neighbors_. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcasts and here on YouTube as well. All right, so the Nationals, we have to do this as we do every single time. We set up where the Nats are as we head into the show. Just got done. It is 4:20 East Coast time as I am recording this. So the Nationals just got done playing their game with the New York Mets. The Nationals are now 18-34 on the year. They are 9-16 away from home. They are 9-18 at home. They are 17 games back of the New York Mets. Chasm the Mets have created out there in first place. They're just 6 games behind the Braves, though, 4 behind the Phillies, and they are 4 behind the Fish. The Marlins have really had a rough go of it as of late as well. They're winning right now at the time of this podcast. The Nationals have a minus 76 run differential. They have lost 3 straight games. They're 4-6 in their last 10. So our last show, we touched on the first game of this Nationals-Mets series. This was a wildly, and I mean a wildly uncompetitive series. This is some of the most non-competitive baseball that we've seen the Nationals play in consecutive games all season. They end up losing this series by a combined score of 28-5, 13-5 in game 1. And the only time they really look competitive is when they got a few runs up on the board there in the beginning of that first game of the series. They lost 10-0 and then 5-0. Game was competitive-ish today. The Nationals really weren't threatening. The Nationals have been shut out in the last 18 innings that they have played. We'll work from the second game of the series. This 10-0 win was another brutal Patrick Corbin performance. Corbin surrenders 12 hits, surrenders 7 runs, all 7 of which were earned. 6 Ks, 1 home run allowed on 106 pitches. Erasmo Ramirez gave up a run, as did the new call-up, Francisco Perez. He and Jordan Weems, really difficult sight for both those guys after each getting the call-up here on the season. So Francisco Perez out there, tough to see him. I know he was recalled, I guess you could say, for the Nationals, but Jordan Weems, seeing him out there, that did not go very well today. We'll get to that in a little bit, although he did have a clean inning that he worked in that game yesterday. Look, this one was, this Mets lineup was just all over it from the word go. A Marte home run, Guillorme got it in the act, Canna. I mean, you look at how these guys all did. Mark Hanna was 4 for 5. Marte was 1 for 5. Lindor was 1 for 5. Alonso was 1 for 3. Davis was 2 for 5. McNeil was 3 for 5. Escobar was 2 for 5. Guillorme was 2 for 5. I mean, these guys hit and they 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 hit all day long. The Nationals did not. A really good start for Trevor Williams. Drew Smith was really good in relief, as was Joely Rodriguez, and then Medina comes in, shuts the door, and they really wasn't that relevant. The Nationals bats, I mean, they just were not impressive in this game It wasn't like the pitchers, from the Mets were bringing the heat in this game. It wasn't like it was just some crazy, really impressive performance from them, but just overs across the board. The first three guys in the lineup combined to go 0 for 10 with 2 walks. If you combine the first 5 guys in the lineup, well, it's it's kind of even a worse picture at that point. Let's say that was 0 for 10. They were 1 for 18. The front 5 guys were in the lineup with 2 walks on the day. And Yadiel Hernandez and Josh Bell really have come down to earth. D. Strange Gordon now had a 3-hit game, which is nice to see. Michael Franco had a couple hits as well. We did see Escobar leave this game. D. Strange Gordon went from left field to shortstop. Lane Thomas came in and went to left field. I guess that's the beauty of having a guy like a D. Strange Gordon on your team, is the fact that he gives you so much flexibility with where you can play him, because you can play him literally anywhere on the field. It feels like when it comes to D. Strange Gordon. So you saw I'm watching the Ukraine game right now. It's 2-1 now between them and Scotland, World Cup qualifier. So flexibility, it's nice, and he has 3-hit game. It's nice, but he looked pretty silly in today's game. 10-0 there, and then let's go ahead to today's game, 5-0. So I thought Evan Lee made a really good accounting of himself in this game. 3 2/3, 4 hits, 2 runs, both earned, 3 walks, 2 Ks, 67 pitches. This kid comes in from Double-A, and eventually they get to him in the 4th inning. Tomas Nido with a single, actually had a couple singles off of him, which scored a couple guys. And also there is a fielding error by D. Strange Gordon that allowed Tomas Nido to get to second base. And this was a really good day. This was Tomas Nito's, this is one of the best games he's had. I think I've seen him as a Met, 4 for 4 with 3 RBIs on the day today. But I thought Evan Lee, you could see his family in the crowd. They were just so desperate for him to have a nice game. I thought he did. I thought he did everything the Nationals could have asked for him. I mean, sure, I'd love to have him go out there and pitch 5 scoreless innings. This was a whole lot of fastball, a whole lot of curveball from him today. That's really what I noticed. I'm sure I'll notice a lot of the same. And I thought Bob Carpenter made a great point on the broadcast with Kevin Franzen, where he said, look, he is making a lot of competitive pitches. He'd have some were non-competitive, but a lot of close pitches just off the edge, making Mets hitters think. And this thing through 3 full was square at 0-0. So I thought Evan Lee, look, he comes in there and looked a lot better than a lot of guys have. And right now, and I also thought it was pretty interesting that he and Cliff Lee are literally from the same place in Arkansas, and people think that they're family all the time. They're not actually family. But I think that's a positive. It's a young guy, for the Nationals looking at the Nationals' top prospects, this is not a guy that we are considering to be top of the heap. But I will say this, I have been a pretty big proponent on this show about, us. He's number 17, by the way, on the Nationals prospect. So in these 24 years old, this is when they should be seeing him, this season. But I have been pretty big on making sure that younger guys get the opportunities, right? I'd rather see the Evan Lees, the Cade Cavallis, than I would see, guys like an Aaron Sanchez or guys, like Anibal Sanchez, right? I want to see the young folks, the young guns, the young fellas get their opportunities. And Evan Lee did today. And I thought, for a guy who just came up from Double-A, thought he made a really good acquitting of himself. And we'll see if the Nationals continue that as we move forward. They give this guy a chance to do it, rock and roll from where he is right now. And it kind of leads to our next point. Also, bats were bad today. The Nationals offense today, y'all, was not good. Now, I didn't think Carrasco looked that good either. I mean, he walked, 5 guys in the day? He made some good pitches, got out of some big moments when he had to. But the Nationals, I just didn't think they were good approaches. I didn't think they were good at bats. They weren't good approaches. Josh Bell is a pair of hits. Riley Adams is a pair of hits. But they weren't stringing good ones together. And the front part of the lineup again today has a rough go at it, although Nelson Cruz did walk 3 times. So you're seeing that, and Juan Soto extends his walking streak. I mean, he's now hitting 227 with a 376 on base, which is ridiculous. But he gets struck out in the end of the game by Evelyn Diaz. And so some of the at-bats were not as competitive in this game. There were, shout out a couple guys here. Look, we're through May, we're into June, and the numbers for Carl Edwards Jr. just continue to be incredibly impressive. And mark this today now as 13 innings pitched on the year, 12 consecutive innings with no runs being allowed for Carl Edwards Jr. And the first time it happened, it was 3 runs and an inning against the Mets in a 4-2 loss, and he took the loss in that game, and it was also technically a blown save when he came in the game as well too. But after that, it bounces back 2 days later with 2 clean innings against the Mets, and ever since then, he has been off and running. And in that span, he's surrendered, and since this, so take out that first inning, it's been 12 innings that he has pitched. Coming in today, it was 2 hits allowed. Let me see if he allows one today. No hits allowed today. So 12 innings with just 2 hits allowed for Carl Edwards Jr. His ERA is now down to 2.08. This guy has really done a great job of coming from AAA. And I've talked about this a lot, but he deserves so much of a spotlight because, man, we saw Austin, like the end of the run for Austin Voth. We'll get to that in a second. For guys like this, like it can go sideways when your confidence is shaken in the ways that his confidence was shaken. It can just start going south for you and never recover. And he has done a good job of having things, recover for him, quite frankly. All right, so that will do it. 5-0 loss for the Nationals. Quick word from our sponsors, but first let you guys know that I am going on the podcast Late Night Reds Talk. We are going to be doing a preview of the Nationals and the Reds series coming up, and yeah, 2 bad teams getting after it. But those guys invited me on, excited to come on, and so they're letting me also use that audio and video. That will be the episode that we have up on tomorrow's show. So letting you guys know that is coming up as well. All right, today's show, friends, is brought to you by our friends at Blue Nile. You guys know Blue Nile. We talked about them before. But this is a jewelry that is fine. It is luxury. It is for people who want to get something nice for their significant other, for their their wife, for their girlfriend, for whoever it is, a nice piece of jewelry, whether it's going to be a tennis bracelet or a ring or a necklace. They've got it all. And whatever your idea is, it can be brought to life by our friends at Blue Nile today. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from Blue Nile. And Locked On Sports listeners, my friends, can get $50 off a purchase of $500 or more. This is a podcast exclusive. So use the code Locked On. That's code Locked On, LOCKEDON, Locked On. Plus, every order is insured. It ships free and arrives in a discreet package that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace at BlueNile.com. All right. So pieces of news to get to. This one brings me no joy. If you guys listen to this podcast, you know I am a Joe Ross guy. Nationals Joe Ross will have Tommy John surgery for a second time. After gathering multiple opinions on his injured right elbow, Washington Nationals starter Joe Ross will have Tommy John surgery for the second time. Manager Dave Martinez told reporters on Tuesday. So obviously today is Wednesday, but just getting this news now. Ross, 29, is the final year of the team control and is expected to become a free agent in the fall. He will not be able to throw a pitch before that happens. No date yet, but he wants to get it repaired and fixed, Martinez said. The Nationals face the Mets at Citi Field, and now after the surgery, it's a lot of healing and strengthening to get him ready to go on a mound again as soon as possible. So his most recent appearance came August 11th. He has been sidelined since then by a partial tear in his ulnar collateral ligament, or the UCL as we know it by. Then having a bone spur removed from his elbow in March, and after going his first Tommy John surgery in July 2017. Ross turned about 14 months later. Very similar recovery period would keep him out until next summer. For most of the season, the Nationals had Ross and Strasburg on identical rehab schedules, but when they each started minor league games on May 24th, Ross threw 2 solid innings, then felt elbow pain in the third, which he finished the inning out of, 29 pitches short and that was in Washington's. I forget which minor league affiliate it was for. And then the immediate MRI came, and that was when the optimism began to fade. So he got a few opinions, and this is where he's landed. And I thought Joe Ross last year had a really solid season, but it really sucks for him that it's going to come under. It's going to be done with now. Last year, 5-9 with a 4.17 ERA and 108 innings. And I thought he had some stretches where he pitched some really good baseball. And I wanted to see him again in the Nationals, for his future, not just here, but for for the future, see what he could do, and maybe land himself a spot somewhere else. But it's just not to be for Joe Ross, at least right now. The Nationals re-sign him. Maybe they could. But folks, you all have heard me. I've said this a bunch. They need reliable arms. So they're not having to do things like call up Evan Lee, and maybe they were going to do that anyway at some point in time. But you don't always want to be having to do things like that in games, in situations like this. You want to have steady guys, dependable guys. I think because of that, if you get a guy with 2 Tommy Johns before the age of 30, you might not be very likely to go and get a guy, or go and re-sign, I should say, a guy like a Joe Ross. So I think the Nationals at this point in time, I would say maybe somebody else will sign him. Like, I think Joe has shown enough to where, especially last year, I think Joe deserved to be signed by somebody. I think he deserves a shot to pitch elsewhere. Once, I've said this a lot. I was at that game, that Sunday day game that he pitched against the Giants, where he pitched brilliantly. That was a fantastic start for him, one of the best he's had as a National. And I think he's a very capable pitcher. To see, is it the Nats or is it somebody else takes a shot on Joe Ross? Also, have to mention that Alcides Escobar goes down. So Alcides Escobar, he goes down, and that gives way for the call-up. The Nationals call up Luis Garcia. And look, he is the future. He is the future of this. And I'll read from our friend Matt Wyrick over at NBC Sports Washington. We'll talk to him tomorrow. The Nationals called up their 22-year-old shortstop. We'll talk to him more about this, to replace Alcides Escobar, who landed on the 10-day IL with a right hamstring strain. He was listed in their lineup, batting 7th in the series finale against the New York Mets, was Luis Garcia. This obviously happened before the game. Did end up getting a hit today, which is nice to see. Grounded one towards the right side. Used some speed to get to third as well on a hit subsequently after that by Riley Adams. So Luis Garcia, 1 for 3 today, or 4 today rather. 3 Ks, that was really pressing today. But good to see him back up at the majors. We'll talk more about that with Matt Wyrick tomorrow. So last thing we have to mention is that Austin Voth has been DFA'd, and the experiment between the Nationals and Austin Voth has come to an end. Reading from Jesse Doherty once again, getting a workout today. Here is Jesse on the Locked On Nationals podcast. But the thing for Austin Voth was they really liked the spin rate on his curveball, and they liked his fastball as well. And because they liked those two things together, they thought, hey, maybe we can rectify this. Maybe this guy can be maybe this guy, can be somebody that we use in the pen. But for Austin Voth, man, it was a complete disaster. Really it felt like from start to finish this year, Austin Voth just had a horrible year for the Nationals. And it felt like every single time they threw him out there, he was going to get absolutely crushed. That was the case. On the year for Voth, a 10.13 ERA, a 2.14 whip, and 18 innings that he worked, 34 hits surrendered in 18 2/3 innings, 21 earned runs allowed, 18 Ks and 6 walks. It just didn't happen for him. He's just missing spots too much. And maybe he goes somewhere else and things work out for him. But this was a guy that was part of the 2019 World Series team, had a 3.30 ERA and 43 2/3 innings worked, right? And then really didn't repeat much of that performance afterwards. I mean, as a lifetime 5.70 ERA, lifetime 1.45 whip, and 181 2/3 innings pitched. they've seen enough of 29-year-old. I think I've seen enough of 29-year-old. I believe you all out there feel like you all have seen enough of this. And look, it sucks because that guy was actually part of the championship team, right? He was part of a team that won a World Series, and you want to see guys like that be able to rectify things. I mean, I think as Nats fans out there, a lot of you all want to see guys from that team still succeed, still be out there, and still maintain their spot with the Nats. And it's just sad that we aren't getting to see that anymore. And so, that's a really difficult thing. Ukraine just scored and their manager is just screaming. Great for Ukraine, man. Good for them. Ukraine's going on to the World Cup final qualifier against Wales. It's pretty amazing to see that Ukraine is getting to go and do that. So just want to mention that. Shout out to Ukraine. So like we all want to see guys like that succeed and maintain position in the MLB and be able to stay up and contribute and all of those things. It's really unfortunate that he's not going to be able to do that. I think we all kind of are on the same page when it comes to that, right? I think we're all kind of in the same space. All right, we want to see these guys succeed, want to see them do well, but just not meant to be at this point in time. All right, that will do it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Find us at LO_Nationals. Follow me at JoshNeighbors_. Find the show wherever you podcast and on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.